This is the second lecture for Chapter 6. It will cover sections 5, 6, and 7. Section 5 is molecular compounds sharing electrons. A molecular compound is a compound that is composed entirely of covalent bonds. And covalent bonds are bonds that are formed as a result of the sharing of valence electrons, hence why we call it covalent. So it's the sharing of valence electrons between two atoms. A molecule is the simplest unit of a molecular compound. So you could have one molecule of water, for example, or you could have two of them or three of them, and so on and so forth. But when you combine them together, you get the substance, water. All right, so rules for naming molecular compounds. First rule is name the first element present and then the second element. Usually the first element is located furthest to the left and or furthest down in the periodic table. The suffix "ide" should be used with the second element present. And we use prefixes with molecular compounds, such as mono for 1, di for 2, tri for 3, tetra for 4, penta for 5, hexa for 6, hepta for 7, octo for 8, nona for 9, deca for 10, so on and so forth. We use that to indicate the number of atoms of each element present in the compound. Mono is omitted from the first named element in the compound. So if the first element has only one atom of itself, you don't put mono. All right, so examples here, we have ICl, and this has the name iodine monochloride. We don't say monoiodine monochloride, even though it means the same thing. We just say iodine monochloride. Notice we have mono in front of the chlorine, and we change the ene part of chlorine to ide. In NO2, we have nitrogen dioxide. Again, we change oxygen to oxide. There's two oxygens, so we have di there. There's only one nitrogen. We leave its name the same, and we don't put mono. CCl4 is carbon tetra for 4 chloride. And then finally, P4SC3 would be tetra phosphorus triselenide. Now, you don't ever change the first name. It's always the actual name: iodine, nitrogen, carbon, the phosphorus there. We leave those the same. It's only the second one where you put the "ide" in. Some common molecular compounds: CO2 is carbon dioxide, CS2 is carbon disulfide. Now, oxygen and sulfur in the same group of the periodic table. You can see here carbon disulfide is used in the manufacture of rayon. Carbon dioxide is used in fire extinguishers. It's dry ice. It's a propellant in aerosols, carbonation in beverages, so on and so forth. N2O would be dinitrogen monoxide, actually. Should say monoxide. Nitrogen monoxide. And this is an inhalation anesthetic. It was actually the first anesthetic compound used, and we also call it laughing gas because it makes you giggly. NO is nitric oxide is the common name, or nitrogen monoxide. It's a stabilizer. It's a biochemical messenger in cells. Sulfur dioxide is it's a preservative in fruits, vegetables. It's a disinfectant in breweries and bleaching in textiles. Sulfur hexafluoride is used in electrical circuits. An interesting fact is if you breathe in sulfur hexafluoride, your voice will get really deep. I can't even get as deep as it would, but because it is much more dense than air, the SF6 travels through your vocal cords much more slowly, so your vocal cords move much more slowly, giving you a deeper sound. Helium, on the other hand, being less dense than air, moves faster through your vocal cords, which makes your voice a higher pitch. Sulfur trioxide is used in the manufacture of explosives. So here's a flow chart for naming chemical compounds. If it's an ionic compound which exists between a metal and a nonmetal, you have first to name the metal and then to name the nonmetal. The metal, if it forms only one positive ion, you use the name of the element or ammonium. If it forms more than one positive ion, you use the element name followed by a Roman numeral that is equal to the charge of the atom or atoms. And then for the nonmetal part, you have monoatomic ions, meaning not polyatomic, but just one atom that is charged. You use the first syllable of the element name followed by "ide." If it's a polyatomic ion, you use the name of the polyatomic ion. And then for molecular compounds, which exist between two nonmetals, you have the first nonmetal named. It's usually, I guess the biggest question people have is, how do I know which one to write first? And it's usually the least electronegative element will actually be written first. But anyways, for the first nonmetal, you use a prefix to match subscript before the element name, and then for the second nonmetal, use a prefix to match subscript before the element name, and it ends with "ide."